welcome back to Daddy, Dad and Me. We are parents to our gorgeous little son, Little Man, as you probably would have seen from the videos. That all happened in the summer of 2020, the year probably that everyone wishes to forget. Obviously we do, but we also want to remember it because it was a very nice year for us and the year that we became a family. Today's video, the adoption tag, we were recently tagged by Molly Mama Adopt, and it's a great opportunity to spread the message of awareness and just really get people talking about adoption and opening their eyes to it all. So going to be answering some questions. Hope you find it helpful. Any questions at all, contact us on the socials, Daddy, Dad and Me, or email us at daddydadandme@gmail.com, and I will tag a few accounts below and also details of Adoption UK and just more information that we would maybe think you'd find useful if you were going to go down the adoption route path. So first question, let's go on through. So we went through a voluntary agency. We did do research for our local authority. However, we found when we started researching about the local authority that it just kind of, I would say, put us off just some of the information that we found out, speaking to other adopters who had gone down that path, and also how some local authorities, we weren't too aware how ours would do it, but how they would go through the family finding process, and they can be a bit specific, I suppose. So therefore we ended up going to two voluntary agencies. The first one, if you'd have watched some of our videos or even on the blog, you'll kind of realise that we never went with that agency. We were put off just at the interview, sadly, just by their cold nature throughout the interview. We didn't feel it was the right mix for us. So we went with a voluntary agency who have been amazing through absolutely everything. And yeah, wouldn't look back at all, no regrets. And yeah, I definitely recommend voluntary agency. So we went down the traditional adoption route. We did consider fostering, but it wasn't really an option for us. I know just from speaking about us both and knowing how we both are, the kind of different avenues that come along with fostering, really, I don't think I'd be able to cope with, if I'm honest, speaking very open and honestly with you. And I know that I would struggle with that and the likelihood of children going back and dealing with that, and I'm a very emotional person and I don't think I could deal with that, and therefore that was really our reason for going down the traditional adoption route. And that may have brought kind of delays and waiting along with it, but we knew that was the right choice for us, and that's exactly what I would say. Do what is right for you, and kind of don't be talked into things just because it may sound better. But yeah, do what's right for you both, and for your future. It's a lifelong decision, so yeah, you need to do what's right. So we've had quite a long journey in comparison to others. I know some can go through it relatively quickly. You can look between 6 to 8 months if it were to be quick. Ours has been more or less 2 years, and when I look back now, I never thought it would be that long. I'm an impatient person, and I kind of thought, no, it'll be done within a year. But I'll just talk through what happened and when, just so you can get an idea. And things, be prepared for the unexpected as well. So we went to an information event for the agency that we ended up going through back in 2018, so that was the summer, so August, September. We then didn't start stage 1 until kind of late September, October, because they came out and interviewed us at home. And I know some you go to them, but for them, and that, we really liked that, very personable interview, really. Yeah, it was. We felt a stark difference between how we were interviewed by the other agency to the agency we went with. So yes, so stage 1 was September, October. That then took us up to kind of Christmas, December 2018. I then had an incident at work, and long and short of it was I walked out of my job, didn't like it, and there are various reasons, obviously won't go into that for here, but we ended up taking a break for 3-4 months, just our choice, which we were told we were able to do. You can take a break of up to 6 months between stages, and some people like to, whether that's last holiday, home renovations, you name it, that's your time to do it. So we took a break of about 4 months or so, then started stage 2 in May, June of 2019, and that then took us through to approval panel, because it lasts, stage 2 is about 4 months or so for all the assessments and the write-ups, etc. That took us through to approval panel back in October 2019, and obviously got approved then, and it was only several months later that we were then linked with Little Man. So we had seen his profile probably, I'd say, about 6-7 weeks after approval, so relatively quickly. Some people can be longer, and it just so happened that was the time for us. And then we were linked December 2019, early Jan 2020, and it was all planned to go to matching panel, which we did. However, and this is what I mean by the unexpected happens, COVID came along, which obviously caused the lockdown. There was a lot of discussion around that point. We didn't know if it was going to happen, not happen, when, why, how, etc. And then a legal challenge was made. And because of that and the mixture of COVID, obviously all the courts, it was just the whole UK shut down more or less for months. That all happened, it was heard, etc. And we then had kind of confirmation that everything could move on, go forward with placement in June, July 2020. So you're looking at 2 years just from that point. And now Little Man has been with us 6 months. A whirlwind when we look back, but when you're in it, it feels like a hell of a long time. And it's a long time. There is just a lot of waiting. But yeah, now looking back, I was like, okay, yeah, you know what? That was our journey, and I'm very thankful for that. But so I know that other adopters can go through it relatively quickly. So I wouldn't call it a bad experience for us. We've learnt a lot from it, and adoption changes everybody that goes through it. I don't think you could go through it and not change. So yeah, that was our journey. This is quite an interesting discussion point, really. I see in Little Man, he can be quite stubborn. His personality is really shining through, and I know obviously their moods, their behaviour, that can all change. And I'm quite a stubborn, or can be a stubborn person, and I've really started to see that in him and how he deals with his emotions. And it's also explaining to him that's okay to be like that. You're not going to be on your A game every single day. And there are other things behind that which maybe drive that as well, but I'd definitely say that. And also silliness. I don't think you can ever not be too silly with them or with him. And yeah, whether that's silly voices, running around the house like an absolute lunatic, and just being a child with him. So I really see that in him. My husband James, I would say that he absolutely adores playing games. He's very always loves getting the jigsaws out, or the different kind of games that we've got, like the orchard games, and he really likes playing that with him, and also really enjoys being creative. James is very creative, and yeah, Little Man really kind of honed in on that really quickly. And say most weeks, thanks to lockdown, I suppose, that he just likes to be creative in some capacity, and I think that's really helping him, especially from a therapeutic parenting point of view as well. I say he loves like the kinetic sounds and all things like that, so definitely recommend. But yeah, we're seeing ourselves in him, and that will only continue to happen as the weeks, months and the years go on. Waiting, waiting, waiting. You will wait a lot, and I would say your waiting points, I wouldn't necessarily say are between stage 1 and stage 2. Once we finished stage 2, our social worker then had to do the write-ups. You kind of don't hear once you've done your assessments. And this is just our viewpoint, opinion, and experience. And then once you're approved, it can go deathly quiet. And that is due to you are approved, and it is just the family finding process. We were told some adopters could take years to get to that point of going forward with a link and a match. honestly, as I've said earlier in the videos, ours was only a few months. But yeah, there's a lot of time in which you're either waiting for someone to get back to you. I personally found the family finding process, it was, I'm going to say enjoyable, and to the point of, in that you're making your family. And but what I did struggle with and was difficult to deal with was people coming back saying no. We had registration of interest on one child, and it came back that they didn't wish to pursue us because we were a same-sex couple. And that was we'd been basically prepared in our training that may happen for some same-sex adopters. We never really found out the reason why, and I kind of wish I pushed it at the time, but that's gone. So you have to be prepared for the waiting and the unexpected, which can happen. And obviously with the legal challenge we prepared for it, but until it actually happened, and obviously then COVID came along, that was a hell of a lot of waiting, and we really struggled with that. There were moments we almost got to the point like, I don't know if I can do this. This is my mental health is taking a bashing here. But one thing you learn through the process, resilience. You learn how resilient you are, and we've come out the other side. And scarily, within like 3-4 months, that's going to be nearly a year that's gone by. So yeah, it's just a lot of waiting. So just use your time wisely, I would say. And now, one of the difficult parts that we're now dealing with are the effects of trauma that little man has had. And I obviously won't say too much because there are things that are ongoing. But you read, and there's only so many books you can read, only so many blogs, there's only so much you can do to prepare for it until you are actually in that situation yourself. And it's hard. It really is hard. But we are seeking all the support that we can, and that is now forthcoming. But that is the reality of it. There are the effects of trauma and the various ways that can come out. So yeah, just be prepared for that. But that is personally a difficult part of the adoption process to cope with. By the point where we hadn't always spoken about children, and it was one of those, I never put pressure, or we both never put pressure on our relationship, in which we said, I want children by the time I'm 35, 40 or whatever. And we just kept speaking more and more about children, building a family, kind of done the thing. We'd had lots of exotic holidays, we'd got married, we had Ralph, and it naturally just felt, not that all couples or all people will go through that same pathway, but for us, we felt that it was a natural next step to have our family. Surrogacy was never really an option for us. It was, one, due to the cost, and it didn't feel right for us. So adoption was always spoken about. And we always both said to each other, if we don't feel that we can go through with it at whatever stage, and we were told that even by the social workers, if you don't feel something is right, or that you just can't do it anymore, that's absolutely fine. That is a-okay to do that. And we just kept on going through the process. And yeah, there were tricky moments to deal with obviously, as you would have heard earlier in the video, but it nenever put us off. So yeah, it's been a real journey for us, as with all adopters. But adoption was always spoken about, and it was just a natural conversation. And yeah, it very much started with the information event, which most adopters, that's where it all starts, and you just learn more. And they give a very frank point of view about it, and that's not there to scare you, but it's kind of, this is the worst case scenario for what may happen. It's just so you know that all eventualities, more or less, are covered. So, which I'm glad about, because if the best then happens, that's great, but at least you know from the outset, this is what could happen, or this is the reality of what you're going to go through, and the children that there will be, and the after effects of that, as I've said, with the trauma. So yeah. being a family, everything that comes with it, whether that's going to the shops, going to the park, knowing that he's going to be going to school, starting nursery, all of those things. When I personally thought about them when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, I thought, oh, well, knowing obviously that I was a gay man, I wonder if I'll ever be able to have a son or daughter. Will I be married? And it's all of those things, and being now being able to enjoy those moments with him, you can't beat it at all whatsoever. And yeah, so it's just being a family. I know it could be the mundane things, and there are stresses and strains, as with all parents and their children. But just being able to even things that like numbers 1 to 10, where he kind of struggled at points with, now reels them off like you would never believe. And just seeing those changes and those positive changes, you can't change it for the world. Weirdly, I'm going to say social media. Engage with as many people as you can. Speak to your own support network, and you will talk about that, or you would have spoken about that, and kind of firmed that up throughout your stage 2 assessment. So that's spoken about in a lot of detail, your support network. But if you look up the hashtag adoption community or UK adoption community, you will see thousands of adopters, and that's gay, lesbian, straight, you name it. There's just a whole mixture of adopters. We started our channel back in, or started the blog back in 2018. So we've documented our journey right from the very start, and just shared not everything, but very intricate details of the process, and been very open and honest. I hope that comes across. And yeah, just engage with adopters. Speaking to adopters really helped us, one, with the journey, but also now that we are parents, being able to open up and say, I'm struggling, have you got any tips or advice? And it's, yeah, social media has been amazing for us. So for all the negative that I know it does bring and can drive, it has been amazing for us. And just speak to people about it. Normalise adoption. People think it's a taboo subject when you talk about it. And I'll be sharing in an upcoming blog about an instance where a nurse was speaking to me, and I could see she felt quite uncomfortable speaking about adoption and how to refer to me, little man, and my husband. So I was almost having to talk for her. I won't say too much because obviously it's more in the blog, but just normalise everything. Adoption is beautiful. Yes, it's hard, but that's life. And celebrate it. And yeah, you'll honestly just go and speak to people as much as you can, and yeah, really hear it from the horse's mouth rather than what you may have heard here, there, and everywhere. And that is how we've got a real honest view and account from people that have gone through it and go through it years later, again and again and again. Be yourself. Be open and honest about everything, because as I say, we were told for social workers, if it was important enough, they would find out about it at some stage. So they do references. They spoke very openly with one of our references about a lot of stuff that we didn't expect. So be prepared for that. And that's not there to scare you. They just want to know you inside and out, because they're going to help you find your family. So yeah, you just need to be very open and honest. Be prepared to wait, but fill that time. Just before lockdown happened, I had finished work, and James wasn't working at that point because he was self-employed, and we just had a week where we did everything that we wanted to. Did afternoon tea, did a spa day, went to the theatre loads, do all the things that you can before your family and all of that busyness happens, because you will get it back afterwards at some point once you're a family, but you won't be the same again. As I said, adoption changes everything. It threw our world all upside down, and you kind of spending that time putting it all back together. And yeah, just be prepared, just to be open and honest. They'll ask a lot of you, and that's not there to feel like you're jumping through hurdles. It's just necessary for the process. And as you go through it, as you may gather from speaking to adopters, it is all necessary information that they're asking of you. yeah, just enjoy it. Your journey is your journey. We can't wait to share that with little man and to talk about it with him, so he knows exactly what we did, and that how our paths crossed. It was just meant to be. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, gone into probably way too much detail because it's been turned out to be right a long video, and I will tag some people below to join in for their adoption tag. As I said right at the start, get people talking about adoption, celebrate it. It is not a taboo subject. Adoption is beautiful, because it's created our family. So yeah, I'll tag some accounts below and I'll see you very, very soon. Bye.